Good morning, everyone. We will be starting service at 10 a.m. very shortly. Good morning. So glad to see you all on this beautiful fall morning. We are having service in our virtual service for the Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm the Reverend Julianne Lepp, minister of this congregation, and I'm so glad to see you this morning. We plan on offering online services through May 2021, so we hope that you'll continue to engage with us online. And our opening words this morning are from John Higgins. Welcome to this place. This is a home where no revealed truths are promoted, and no scripture or human being accepted as infallible. This is a place for searching for truth. But we are believers. We believe in intellectual freedom. We believe in justice. We believe in compassion and in concern for each other and the world. We believe in commitment to those ideals which make us caring and active in the struggles for human dignity. We are Unitarian Universalist. Today, we will explore the importance of the freedom to read. And in fact, our centering thought this morning is the quote from Stephen Schabowski. He says, banning books gives us silence when we need speech. It closes our ears when we need to listen. It makes us blind when we need sight. I'd like to share the First Amendment of our Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Banned Books Week is an annual awareness campaign promoted by the American Library Association, and it celebrates the freedom to read, draws attention to challenged and banned books. And this campaign for 2020 is Censorship is a Dead End, and is held always during the last week of September since 1982. And this is our second service that we've done on this topic. And we want to stress that just like the campaign does, that the importance of ensuring the availability of those unorthodox or unpopular viewpoints to all who wish to read them is so important for our democracy. Some of the events that occurred during this past week were a virtual readout, the First Amendment Film Festival, and now we celebrate with you today. Come, let us worship together.
Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts freely flower. Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts give me power. No scholar can map them, no hunter can trap them, no one can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei, I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure. My conscience decrees, this right I must treasure. My thoughts will not cater to duke or dictator, no one can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei. Tyrants can take me and throw me in prison. My thoughts will burst forth like blossoms in springtime. Foundations may crumble and walls they may tumble, but free folk shall cry, Die Gedanken sind frei.
Hi, friends. Trick or treat. No, it's trunk or treat.
What's trunk or treat?
Trunk or treat is what we're doing this year instead of trick or treating. A lot of us don't feel quite so safe going trick or treating because of the pandemic. And there's been recommendations to change the way we've done things. So this year, the RE program, we're offering a special trunk or treat to allow for kids to keep trick or treating in a very, very safe way. We're having a small gathering. You have to sign up to be part of it because we want to limit the number of people that are going to be there, and we want to make sure we can space everybody out. So you sign up. We're allowing 3 families at a time every 15 minutes, 24 families max. So there's a limited number of people that can sign up. So make sure you sign up. I'll make sure to put the link below. And so when you get there, we're going to have a one-way. We're going to have a one-way direction for the trunk or treat so that we can make sure that nobody's colliding into each other. We're going to sanitize our hands. We're going to sanitize our hands. We're going to stay 6 feet apart. Those that are handing out candy, agreeing to wash their hands before they package the treats. And if they're handing out more than one treat, which everybody's going to, we're going to put them in little baggies so that so everything stays nice and safe. And there you go. And let's see what else. Oh, we're all going to be wearing masks, and we're going to make it as safe as possible so that families can enjoy trick-or-treating in a very safe, controlled way. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to have a safe alternative, make sure you sign up and get involved. It's going to be it's going to be Saturday, October 31st. 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the UUC parking lot on Gray Street. And again, only 24 families can sign up. So make sure you sign up early, because once we've hit our max, that's it. We're not going to allow any more people so that we can keep it nice and safe. So I hope to see you there. Bye. Fun with trunk or treat. Yeah, fun.
Hi, I'm Patricia Cleary, Patty Cleary, and I have an announcement for the harvest auction. We are 40 days away from the harvest auction. It's going to be all online, and there's a lot going on. So I thought I would share with you the harvest auction site. So let me see if I can get there. You can navigate to it through the UU website. And some of the instructions are here. Something to note that there's an event today at the Dream Valley Farm. So they have an open house from 1:30 to 5:30 today. You can still sign up. Please do. I think it'll be a great day to be outside. You can buy tickets for the harvest auction, and through the ticket you'll receive the link for the live auction essentially. And there are some great add-ons. So we're going to have cupcakes available. You can also get like a party package add-on to make it, you have a little bit of festivities in your own house, so that it's similar to our old ways. You can go to the donation form, and there's no wrong way to do this, really. If it doesn't seem clear, just put a lot of notes in here, right? So if you have an idea for an event, but you have some questions, just put maybe a title for an event or a donation, and then give us some notes, and someone from the Harvest Auction Committee can contact you for any advice or clarifications. So we're looking forward. We're in the final push, so think of your crafting items. Think of a fun event that could be done social distancing, and we're happy to still have this great celebration of our church and fundraiser planning so going on. So thank you very much. I'll stop this. There we go.
Morning, I'm Nate Otto, the Congregational Vice President. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a religious community who commit ourselves to, commit ourselves to diversity. We hope to cherish human differences, those of gender, race, age, ability, sexual orientation, political views, culture, class, and religious belief. Welcome to all who treasure freedom of conscience and the search for truth. We promise to do our best to provide you a spiritual home. We extend a special welcome to our visitors today. We hope you will follow our UUC Facebook page and stay tuned for the other events such as Wonderful Wednesdays and Sunday morning meditation. There are religious exploration classes for adults and small groups for support and for interests like the book club. Also, families can follow our UUC Religious Exploration Facebook page. There are religious exploration classes for 4K through 9th grade and youth group every Wednesday online for middle school and high school. We're glad you can join us today.
Good morning. I'm Sue Fulkerson, and I serve as your worship associate for today. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith. a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us.
Now Mildred will begin our reading from the Freedom to Read statement.
Good morning. I'm Mildred Larson. Reverend Lepp, Jessi, Peterson, and I will be reading from the Freedom to Read statement. This statement from the American Library Association and the Association of American Publishers was originally issued in 1953. It states, "The freedom to read is guaranteed by the Constitution. Those with faith in free people will stand firm on these constitutional guarantees of essential rights and will exercise the responsibilities that accompany these rights. We therefore affirm these propositions."
It is in the public interest for publishers and librarians to make available the widest diversity of views and expressions, including those that are unorthodox, unpopular, or considered dangerous by the majority.
Publishers, librarians, and booksellers do not need to endorse every idea or presentation they make available. It would conflict with the public interest for them to establish their own political, moral, or aesthetic views as a standard for determining what should be published or circulated.
It is contrary to the public interest for publishers or librarians to bar access to writings on the basis of the personal history or political affiliations of the author.
There is no place in our society for efforts to coerce the taste of others, to confine adults to the reading matter deemed suitable for adolescents, or to inhibit the efforts of writers to achieve artistic expression.
It is not in public interest to force a reader to accept the prejudgment of a label characterizing any expression or its author as subversive or dangerous.
It is the responsibility of publishers and librarians as guardians of the people's freedom to read to contest encroachments upon that freedom by individuals or groups seeking to impose their own standards or tastes upon the community at large, and by the government whenever it seeks to reduce or deny public access to public information.
It is the responsibility of publishers and librarians to give full meaning to the freedom to read by providing books that enrich the quality and diversity of thought and expression. By the exercise of these affirmative responsibilities, they can demonstrate that the answer to a bad book is a good one. The answer to a bad idea is a good one.
We do not state these propositions in the comfortable belief that what people read is unimportant. We believe that what people read is deeply important, that ideas can be dangerous, but that the suppression of ideas is fatal to a democratic society. Freedom itself is a dangerous way of life, but it is ours.
Banned Books Week is an annual event celebrating the freedom to read. It spotlights current and historical attempts to censor books in libraries and schools. It brings together the entire book community, librarians, booksellers, publishers, journalists, teachers, and readers of all types in shared support of the freedom to seek and to express ideas, even those some consider unorthodox or unpopular. Banned Books Week was launched in the 1980s by the American Library Association's Office of Intellectual Freedom and the National Association of College Stores. It was a time of increased challenges, organized protests, and the Island Trees School District versus Pico, a 1982 Supreme Court case, which ruled that school officials cannot ban books in libraries simply because of their content. The books featured during Banned Books Week have all been targeted for removal or restriction in libraries and schools. Books have been challenged for many reasons. For example, age appropriateness, witchcraft, profanity, sexual content, sexual violence, stereotypes, or themes like racism. Many of the most frequently challenged books in the last decade in the US focus on LGBTQ characters and experiences. This is relatively new, as many more books on these themes are being published than in the past. In Babelplatz in Berlin, Germany, a clear box in the plaza's paving invites visitors to look down inside. What we see is that there are no books, just empty white shelves. Babelplatz was the site of one of the Nazi burning ceremonies, book burning ceremonies, led by the German Student Association, May 10th, 1933. The books targeted for burning were those viewed as being subversive or as representing ideologies opposed to Nazism. These included books written by Jewish, pacifist, religious, liberal, anarchist, socialist, communist, and sexologist authors, among others. The first books burned were those of Karl Marx and Karl Kautsky, a Marxist philosopher. Book burnings were held in Germany and Austria throughout the 1930s. In Germany in the 30s, no one stopped the book burning. In fact, students enthusiastically promoted the Nazi ideology to the exclusion of all others. Censorship, or the suppression of ideas, occurs in many areas. In June 1971, in the US, Daniel Ellsberg, a Department of Defense analyst, leaked a top secret history of the US involvement in Vietnam from 1945 to 1968, called the Pentagon Papers, to the New York Times and the Washington Post. The documents show that 4 US presidents had misled the public and Congress about the extent of our involvement and the progress of the war. The Nixon administration's Justice Department tried to restrain the Times and the Post from continuing publication of the papers, but the United States Supreme Court refused to enjoin publication, emphasizing the First Amendment's strong presumption against any prior restraint of free speech. The Pentagon Papers were later published as books. By releasing the Pentagon Papers, Daniel Ellsberg took the serious risk of being sent to prison for the rest of his life for violating the Espionage Act. In June of this year, the White House and the Justice Department sought an emergency court order to censor President Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton's memoir, The Room Where It Happened, by stopping its release. Fortunately, a federal judge ruled that Simon & Schuster could go ahead with distribution of the book. And I have it right here. John Bolton, like Bob Woodward in Fear and Rage and several other authors, felt they had a responsibility to reveal the inner workings of the White House, the People's House, to the public. While we are not living in Nazi Germany, we are in a dark time where lies and so-called alternative facts are presented as truths. News stories are labeled as fake news, and the opinions of scientists are dismissed. In 2017, the Washington Post adopted the slogan, "Democracy dies in darkness." Book and newspaper publishers shine a light on accuracy and truth. The freedom to publish and to read can never be taken for granted. We need to be ever vigilant. It's up to us.
A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines addresses themes of racism and racial identity in a rural 1940s Louisiana community. In 2001, 2 Alabama parents objected to sexual references and profanity in the book, resulting in school board action to ban the book. This passage is a lawyer's opening argument intended to protect a young Black man who was charged with murder. The argument was thought to resonate with whites who made up the jury. Gentlemen of the jury, look at this. This boy. I almost said man, but I can't say man. Oh, sure, he has reached the age of 21 when we, civilized men, consider the male species has reached manhood. But what would you call this? This a man? No, not I. I would call it a boy and a fool. A fool is not aware of right and wrong. A fool does what others tell him to do. A fool got into that automobile. A man with a modicum of intelligence would have seen those racketeers meant no good. But not a fool. A fool rolled to the grocery store. A fool stood by and watched this happen, not having the sense to run. Gentlemen of the jury, look at him. Look at him. Look at this. Do you see a man sitting here? Do you see a man sitting here? I ask you, I implore, look carefully. Do you see a man sitting here? Look at the shape of this skull, this face as flat as the palm of my hand. Look deeply into those eyes. Do you see a modicum of intelligence? Do you see anyone here who could plan a murder, a robbery, can plan anything? A cornered animal to strike quickly out of fear, a trait inherited from his ancestors in the deepest jungle of blackest Africa. Yes, that he can do. But to plan, gentlemen of the jury? No, gentlemen, this skull here holds no plans. What you see here is a thing that acts on command. A thing to hold the handle of a plow. A thing to hold your bales of cotton. A thing to dig your ditches, to chop your wood, to pull your corn. That is what you see here. But you do not see anything capable of planning a robbery or a murder. He does not even know the size of his clothes or his shoes. Ask him to name the months of the year. Ask him to describe a rose, to quote one passage from the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. Gentlemen of the jury, this man planned a robbery. Oh, pardon me. I surely did not mean to insult your intelligence by saying man. Would you please forgive me for committing such an error? Gentlemen of the jury, be merciful. For God's sake, be merciful. He is innocent of all charges brought against him. But let us say he was not. Let us for a moment say he was not. What justice would there be to take this life? Justice, gentlemen? Why, I would just as soon put a hog in the electric chair as this.
Good morning. I'm Phil Swanhorse. The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian is a first-person narrative novel by Sherman Alexie. From the perspective of a Native American teenager, Arnold Spirit Jr., also known as Junior, a 14-year-old promising cartoonist. The book is about Junior's life on the Spokane Indian Reservation and his decision to go to an all-white public high school off of the reservation. Despite this novel's high claim achievements, The Absolute True Diary has also received objections and has consistently appeared on the annual list of frequently challenged books since 2008. The controversy stems from the novel's discussion of alcohol, poverty, bullying, violence, sexuality, profanity, and slurs related to homosexuality and mental disability. As a result, some schools have banned this book from their libraries and from their classrooms. I'm now going to read from The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. And a partridge in a pear tree. When the holidays rolled around, we didn't have any money for presents. So Dad did what he always does when we don't have enough money. He took what little money we did have and ran away and got drunk. He left on Christmas Eve and came back January 2nd. With an epic hangover, he just lay on his bed for hours. "Hey, Dad," I said. "Hey, kid." He said, "I'm sorry about Christmas." I said, that's okay. But it wasn't okay. It was about as far from okay as you can get. If okay was the Earth, then I was standing on Jupiter. I don't know why I said it was okay. For some reason, I was protecting the feelings of the man who had broken my heart yet again. Geez, I had just won the silver medal in the Children of Alcoholics Olympics. "I got something for you," he said. "What?" "It's in my boot." I picked up one of his cowboy boots. "No, the other one," he said, "inside, under the footpad thing." I picked up the other boot and dug inside. Man, that thing smelled like booze and fear and failure. I found a wrinkled and damp $5 bill. "Merry Christmas," he said. Wow. Drunk for a week, my father must have really wanted to spend those last $5. Shoot, you could have bought a bottle of the worst whiskey for $5. He could have spent that $5 and stayed drunk for another day or two. But he saved it for me. It was a beautiful thing and an ugly thing. "Thanks, Dad," I said. He was asleep. "Merry Christmas," I said, and I kissed him on the cheek. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jessi Peterson. I'm an avid reader and a librarian, which means that the ability to read freely and widely is important to me in my personal life and my professional life too. So many of the challenges and bans that come around every year, I think, come from a place of fear of difference, fear of judgment, fear of ideas outside of our comfort zone. The good thing is, a book is a safe place. Books don't judge. They let us posit what ifs, imagine possibilities, give us space in which to be vulnerable, to walk in others' shoes, a space to connect with and show up for ourselves, a space to live with questions we don't have answers for yet. In the library world, we talk a lot about books being both doors and windows, doors and mirrors, pardon me. We need to read stories that aren't ours, to see others, to learn that while we may look different, celebrate different traditions, or love differently than our neighbors, we're all worthy of being seen. And to be seen, we have a need for stories that reflect our reality, that affirm and recognize each person's experience. Last night, I watched the PBS special highlighting chunks of the National Book Festival that happened virtually this last weekend. Well worth a watch, and the entirety of the festival is available for watching on the Library of Congress website. So I urge you to check that out. Several of the featured authors spoke to the idea of not ever seeing themselves portrayed in books as they were growing up, and wanting to change that going forward. I want to highlight a great resource that helps with letting people know that they are seen, and the intellectual freedom and social justice work that libraries can be doing by shaping their collection. It's called the Children's Cooperative Book Center, and it's a library on the campus of UW-Madison. It's not a library that you can check materials out from, but students, early childhood educators, librarians, all have the collection at the CCBC available to them. So if I want to look at a book before I purchase it for my library, I can go there and do that. If I experience having a book challenged in my library, if someone wants to remove a particular material, the CCBC will do the legwork for me of finding reviews of the material in question, of looking to see if it's won awards, finding out about the background of the author, any info about the topic that is being questioned. So they compile all of that material and support librarians who are experiencing a challenge of materials in their library. They do great book lists and book talks for librarians around the state, sharing new great materials for children and youth. And they do math. Since 1985, CCBC has tracked statistics on youth materials published each year by or featuring Black, Indigenous, or people of color. When they started, out of thousands of books that they received for young people, 18 were by Black authors. This last year, that number was 931, with 1,142 titles featuring non-white characters. In 2018, they began tracking other forms of diversity, such as disability, featuring LGBTQ characters, and religion. So that whole compiling of statistics, we're celebrating books that have been challenged or banned, but I think just as important to celebrate is seeing not only what is there and questionable in some people's eyes, but books that are not there because no one published them or because libraries didn't buy them. The kind of self-censorship that the publishing industry is coming out of, and the same thing with librarians. I want to just share something that happened at my library a couple of summers ago. We had a story walk up in the library. A story walk is a picture book that you deconstruct and put along a trail, in a park, somewhere outside so families can experience the book together and be active. I don't really have a good outdoor space, and I was not able to attach the story walk to the building in a great way. So instead, I put it up on the shelf ends in the library, and it was up all summer. The book featured was One Love, which is an adaptation of the song by Bob Marley and illustrated by an African-American illustrator. So at the end of the summer, I was taking down the story walk, and two little girls who are regulars at the library came in and asked what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm taking down the story walk because it's been up for a while and it's time to move on to something new. And they said, oh, we've been pretending that we were in that story all summer because they're just like us. And they were. Two best friends, one black, one white, who saw themselves and each other in a book.
Now is the time in our service where we share our joys and concerns. You may share your joys and concerns in the chat, and I will share them aloud in this community of care. We'll have a moment of silence as you share your joys and concerns. I know this morning it brings to mind fears for freedom and wanting our society to exercise those freedoms. And I appreciate the hard text that were read this morning and the emotions that arise from those. It is definitely challenging to hear words that can pierce our hearts, but they also open our minds to the reality and life that is out there. I want to share a joy this morning for our volunteers. Our volunteers like Dawn Brisky this morning and Amanda Lonsdorf and Patty Cleary and all the people who met with me on a Saturday afternoon to practice doing all the things that it takes to do this behind the scenes. And I just want to express great appreciation for those that contribute to this congregation. Kurt Erickson shares that he's feeling sadness this morning. We lost our fur baby, Amethyst, the guinea pig, overnight. And Ann Shell shares this morning, we are joyful that all of our children are safe and healthy. Marcia Jacobs shares, today is the 8th birthday of my granddaughter, and we celebrated the Mermaid Princess yesterday. That's beautiful. I know that some have shared concerns with me privately about the rise of COVID in our community and hoping that people will continue to distance and to be safe, and that especially those who work in our hospitals are feeling that in their hearts. And I hope that we'll reach out to those who work in the medical field. Dawn shares a joy that we had getting a political sign back within 24 hours. It was stolen, and that is wonderful. I wonder if it was given back to you. I'll have to check with you on that. That's wonderful. Bob Jankowski has a new grandnephew, Noah Thomas Zimmerman. Welcome to the beautiful world, Noah. We're going to make sure you have plenty of books to read. And Virginia says, our grandsons are again with us this week, a joy and an exhaustion. Yes. I'd like to share Ashley Lynn, who is sharing now on our Facebook stream. Her friend is sick and some concerns about finances. But a joy about autumn morning walks. And also Randy Dobchek. I am so grateful for wonderful, intelligent people that are part of my Sangha. I'm so grateful for libraries and reading programs. And so I want to light a final candle for all the joys and concerns that are too deep to escape the folds of our hearts. It is so hard to do this distantly, and every time I see one of you at the supermarket, I just want to hug you. And so I hope that you are imagining that this connection is as close as a hug can feel, if that's comfortable for you, because there are so many people that love you, and I know this is a difficult time. We are so connected in ways that we don't even understand, but let us close our joys and concerns with the words that we often use. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now we'll hear a hymn sung by Anna Rabicki and played by Julia Brown.
Make channels for the streams of love, where they may broadly run, and love has overflowing streams to fill them everyone. But if at any time we cease such channels to provide, the very founts of love for us will soon be parched and dried. For we must share if we would keep this gift all else above. We cease to give, we cease to have, such is the law of love.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Brown, and I will be reading from George, which is a book by Alex Gino. George is an inspiring middle grades read that calls on readers to be who they are. The book has been challenged every year since 2016 and was #1 on the ALA Most Challenged Book list for 2019. Some have found the content of the book offensive because its young protagonist is transgender. When people look at fourth grader George, they see a boy, but George knows she's a girl. She's resigned herself to living with the secret. The following discussion between George and her mother takes place after George is assaulted by a classmate. George, I'm going to be honest. I worry about you. There are lots of kids like Jeff out there and plenty who are worse. I mean, being gay is one thing. Kids are coming out much earlier than when I was young. It won't be easy, but we'll deal with it. But being that kind of gay, that's something else entirely. I'm not any kind of gay, George replied. At least George didn't think she was gay. She didn't know who she liked, really, boys or girls. Well, then why did I find all those girls' magazines in your closet? George drew a deep breath, held it, let it out. then another. Because I'm a girl. Mom's face relaxed and she gave a short laugh. Oh, is that what this is all about? Oh, gee, I was there when you were born. I changed your diapers and I promise you, you are 100% boy. Besides, you're only 10 years old. You don't know how you'll feel in a few years. George's heart sank. She couldn't wait years. She could hardly wait another minute. Tell you what, Mom said, how about we do something special tonight? Let's go to Arnie's all-you-can-eat buffet. You'll feel better once you're eating nachos and pizza and pie like a regular kid. George knew Mom was trying to make her feel better, but it didn't work. Nothing, certainly not a buffet dinner, could help the fact that Mom didn't see her.
I have never felt so rich than when I would leave a library with an armful of books. When I was young, this was a regular ritual. My mom and I would go to the library and we'd come out and we'd juggle. I don't know why we didn't carry bags, but this was somehow, we'd juggle and then we'd put them against the car and try and open the door. And this was something that we bonded over. We didn't have a lot of extra money when I was young. And the value of the library was exponential to the books that my family would have been able to afford. Ray Bradbury was one of my favorite authors when I was a tween and a teenager. I loved his short stories, especially captivated by his novel Fahrenheit 451, and how people memorized books and they would walk around and share those books with people. I thought, wow, that is truly loving words. And I know for myself, books have always been a place where I have found refuge, especially during COVID. I have read more books during this pandemic. I should have new glasses for all the books that I've read. And it is so important that people have access to the freedom to read. And within Fahrenheit 451, I was horrified by the idea of firemen that would destroy books rather than put out fires, and that they would not be protectors, but destroyers. In Fahrenheit 451, books were forbidden as a means of the government to control the thoughts of the public. Excuses such as offensive language and resentment over different levels of intellect, which reportedly made people feel bad. So they wanted everybody to be dumb. and I you know, this is one thing I worry about in our current culture, is this idea to bring everything to a basic level instead of using you know, words that are meaningful or maybe even difficult to understand. You know, it's so important that we have this. And so ironically, Fahrenheit 451 was removed from the classrooms in Bay County in 1987 because of vulgarity, according to an article in the New York Times. The book's banning resulted in, luckily, people exercising their freedom. There was a class action lawsuit, a media stir, and of course, student protests. You can always count on students to want their books, which is good, Books impart culture, values, and dreams, and worlds beyond our imagining. I know when I read about Ray Bradbury's version of Mars, you know, I would just sit and wonder, you know, what would it be like to live on Mars, or to have a life totally different from my own. And then they awaken a wonder, and they awaken curiosity. You know, what is it like to be this person? And we heard that horrible scene in the courtroom, and we hear the struggles of people that we may never have heard or felt before, because it gives first person narratives a chance to seep into our bodies, to seep into our consciousness, to affect our empathy. And I think right now, compassion and empathy are Very important, and so important that we understand one another. You know, during this pandemic, if we don't care for our neighbor or have responsibility to one another because of lack of empathy, that can challenge our health. It can challenge the health of our neighbors. So I know when my oldest child came out as transgender, one of the first shows of support within our extended family was an offer to buy books about gender identity. And they themselves began to read and to understand and to question and say, well, why do you use that pronoun? Or I don't really understand that. Can you tell me more? And reading about George or hearing about George can make you put your self in another person's shoes, and that's so powerful. The fourth principle of Unitarian Universalism calls us to affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And that doesn't mean it's easy. Man, I wish it was easy, but a responsible search for truth and meaning means we get uncomfortable. We have to push our thoughts and our ideas and question ourselves. I know I'm doing an anti-racism book discussion group, and these books are hard. They make me examine my own issues and my own prejudices and my own participation in a culture that is racist. And when we hear about George, you know, we hear about homophobia. When we read the Diary of a Part-Time Indian, we hear about people who are indigenous that experience this every day of their life. And as a white female, you know, who grew up, I didn't have those same experiences, but I could share my own, you know, and that's the thing is if we can talk about our experiences and listen and read, think about how much more depth we would have in our society, how much more compassion we would have. You know, to be able to search for truth and meaning, one must have access not only to our personal experiences, but the knowledge of great thinkers, world religions, poets, and scientists, both living and in times past. In some countries, bestsellers from Harry Potter to the Da Vinci Code have been challenged or banned. Some of the most controversial books in history are now regarded as classics. The Bible, Shakespeare are among those that have been banned over the past 2,000 years. The Chinese emperor Shi Huangdi is said to have been buried alive. He buried alive 460 Confucian scholars to control the writing of history in his time. He killed 460 scholars. In 212 BC, he burned all the books in his kingdom, retaining only one single copy of each in the royal library, and those were destroyed before his death. With all previous historic records destroyed, he thought history would be said to begin with him. Wow. So we can see that it's been a long time that people have tried to control the media, that have tried to control thought. But according to the Freedom to Read statement from the American Library Association, the freedom to read is essential to our democracy. It is continuously under attack. And to try and censor or label controversial views harms us. It harms history. People would ban books to tell us that people like George don't matter. The freedom to read is crucial for our democracy. The attacks on education or the press, that lying press, you know, we have to have a free press, and we have to be able to question authority because we hold them accountable. And so what I would like to do is to give you some homework, because homework's good for the soul. I want you to find a banned book, and that could be the Bible. That could be Shakespeare. It could be George. Find a banned book and read it and share about it with friends or in social media. Find out why it was banned. And maybe give banned books for the holidays during COVID. What a great way to celebrate the freedom to read. There's also a Dear Banned Author letter writing campaign that happens during the Freedom to Read Act. And you can find out about that when you look up the Intellectual Freedom blog, or just look up Dear Banned Author on your search engine. And what people do is they write letters to the banned authors and thank them. You know, I would probably write one to Ray Bradbury if he were still living, but I guess I could write it to his publisher, and how much he opened my mind and inspired me to be a writer. So thank you for being a part of the service today. I hope that it will open your mind and encourage you to grab a book and maybe read it to a younger person too. Now is the time for our giving. The offering we take each Sunday isn't just a habit. It's an opportunity to reconnect with this place, this virtual community. And an offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. So with our gifts, freely giving, may we say yes to the values of freedom and our faith. May we practice Unitarian Universalism within and in outreach to this community. With gratitude for the abundance in our lives, we give help to people in need and support the work of this congregation. Our 50-50 Share the Plate recipient for October is the Eau Claire School District Homeless Program. So the offering will now be given and gratefully received. Thank you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing words today are by Sarah Lemert. Go in peace, embraced by the light and warmth of our gathering. Go in love, ready again to struggle on. Go in beauty, shining forth like a lamp for freedom. Amen.